We are getting ready for one of the biggest elections of our lifetime, Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. In these historic times, many of us question the process of which our votes are counted and how the president is ultimately picked in the end. While many Americans are misinformed, the Electoral College is the deciding factor of how our president is elected, not through the popular vote. In a country where our government is for the people, it makes you think, why isn't the citizens' vote the deciding factor of who is the president? This brings me to my proposal. The Electoral College is outdated and should be abolished and replaced with only the Democratic popular vote. Well, what is the Electoral College? Well, many of us do not actually know what the Electoral College is and what its true function is when it comes to voting. According to the official website of the United States government, USA.gov, uh, they state that the Electoral College is a compromise between a popular vote by citizens and a vote by Congress. Each state is allocated points according to the Electoral College, California having the most, 55 points. This is also stated in the Constitution in Article 2, Section 1. In 1787, the framers were crafting the Constitution. When they were crafting the Constitution, they were at odds of how to conduct voting and were always bickering because they weren't sure how they wanted voting to go down in the United States. Well, through compromise, they adopted the Electoral College eventually. Well, what does that necessarily mean when it comes to voting? Well, let me explain the voting process. Well, how does our voting actually get processed and how does the Electoral College get involved? Let me explain how some of the voting process works. First, the first step is that multiple candidates from both parties campaign throughout the states and come out as saying they are a Republican candidate or a Republican nominee or a Democratic nominee. The next major step is the caucuses and the primaries where Republicans choose their candidate and Democrats choose their candidate. The next step is the national conventions where a nominee is chosen and they are able to pick their vice president. This leads to the presidential election where we are voting through the popular vote, and we are influencing our electors in our states. We're influencing their vote. This is where this is where the Electoral College gets involved. Each state gets a number of electors. Like I said, California gets 55. We get the most because we have the most people. So Electoral College points are based off of what the population is. Each state gets a number of electors based off of how many representatives are in their state. Their elector casts their vote based off of how the state votes, but they have discretion to vote whatever way that they want. And to win the presidency, you need 270 points in total. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's discuss the issues with the Electoral College. The issues came to light during the 2016 election where Donald Trump was elected even though he did not win the popular vote, Hillary Clinton did. Even before that, there was another election that was like that, Bush versus Gore, and it was the same situation. Gore lost the presidency even though he won the popular vote. This has occurred before, but not in such a polarized election. This is why, because 2016 was so polarized, it brought so many issues with the Electoral College to light. And another issue is that smaller, less popular states have more power than larger and more populated states. For instance, people in Wyoming, which has 500,000 people, has 3 electors, whereas a huge state like Texas, with a population of 29 million people, has 32 electors. Well, that sounds fine. Wyoming has more power than Florida. One elector in Florida represents 7,000 people, whereas one elector in Wyoming represents about 200,000. The issue came to the national stage during the Democratic debates in 2019 where Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Cory Booker, and a lot of the Democratic nominees said that they would want to abolish the Electoral College. Another key issue with the Electoral College is the winner-take-all system. The winner-take-all system is in states if, let's say, Joe Biden had the majority of votes in a state and Trump did not. Joe Biden would take all of the electoral points from that state. And that's also an issue because the winner-take-all doesn't allow the minority party to have a voice. And it makes voters feel like their vote doesn't matter if they aren't in the majority party in their state. This affects Americans across the board. We are the ones that should be able to say who is the president of the United States and who is not. We, the people, should be given power to pick who should be the commander-in-chief, not the mysterious electors. We don't even know who they are. So that's another issue. According to the Pew Research Center, a majority of U.S. adults, 58%, say the Constitution should be amended so the presidential candidate who receives the most votes nationwide wins, just like the popular vote. This poll was taken this year, 2020. Therefore, I believe that the Electoral College should be abolished because of how inefficient and outdated it is. Sure, some would say the framers intentionally intended to make our government inefficient and it is outdated and a slow government. Someone who would want to keep the Electoral College or a proclaimed strict constitutionalist like Supreme Court Justice now, Amy Coney Barrett, would say what's in the Constitution stays. However, some things over time aren't acceptable anymore. Just like how poll taxes were abolished and the Constitution was amended so that people of color and women were able to could vote without being disenfranchised. And ideologies evolve over time, and just the Electoral College is an ideology. A lot of people believe in the ideology that Electoral College should be abolished. However, the roadblock to abolishing the Electoral College is in the Constitution. Since it's enumerated in the Constitution, which means that it's explicitly written in the Constitution, it would be extremely difficult to amend the Constitution to get rid of the Electoral College. To abolish Electoral College, either the House of Congress, the House or the Senate would have to write an amendment. It would need to pass with a 2/3 majority in both houses, or it would need to pass in a constitutional convention with 2/3 of state passing the amendment. Another solution would be to have the electors be picked in a public manner. I mean that they should. Citizens of states don't know who their electors are. They're like mystery people. So if they were chosen, like how Joe Biden and like Democratic nominees are chosen at the DNC, I think that would be a lot better because we would know who is voting on our behalf, and it would possibly make voters feel more comfortable with the Electoral College. This all sounds complicated and tedious, right? Well, that is a common trope of American government. This is how our government has operated and continues to operate today. We as Americans have the right to vote and elect the most capable candidate that Americans want to lead us and lead our country. And the only way to do this is to abolish the Electoral College and replace it with a solely Democratic popular vote. Thank you.